Hey, and welcome back. This week I have 4 new recipes for you. Now, I am planning my meals and I have to think about what's going on for the week. We have some food in the freezer that we're going to eat on Monday. That'll make it really easy. But Sunday I have a little more time, so I'm going to do a chicken pot pie. And then I have some easy meals for the rest of the week. And then my husband cooked a couple of those meals. So here is the chicken pot pie. I start by adding 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, 5 teaspoons of butter, and I blend that together to make coarse crumbs. Then I take an egg and add 3 tablespoons of ice water, blend or beat that together, and then add it to the dry mixture. Now I'm going to put my lid back on and I'm going to mix this until it starts to clump together a little bit more. That looks good. And I'll take that and I'll put it out on a mat or a floured countertop and press the pieces together till they start to stick. Now you don't want to overwork this because you want it to stay tender and flaky. So I just gently press it together so it sticks, and then I'm going to wrap it up and stick it in the fridge for an hour. While that's in the fridge, I'm going to make the filling for my pot pie. I'm just melting some butter and adding some chopped onions or diced onions and thyme, dried thyme, to the pan. I'm going to saute those up for a few minutes until they're soft and starting to get a little bit golden. Now I'm going to add cream and chicken broth to a measuring cup and add 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and about 1 or 2 teaspoons of paprika, a teaspoon of salt, and maybe half a teaspoon of pepper. Mix that up, and then I'm going to add that to my onions. Now whisk that together until it starts to thicken. If you feel that it's a little too thick, you can add more chicken broth or water. I ended up adding probably another half cup to a cup. I didn't have that many carrots, so I just used what I had left. And then I added frozen peas. And what made this a pretty quick meal for me is I already had frozen grilled chicken in the freezer. But you could buy pre-made grilled chicken or just grill some up or cook some up and then add it to the filling. I added a little more gravy just to make it a bit thinner, or a little more chicken stock. So it looked about where I wanted it to be. So I got my dough out, my pie crust out, and rolled it. Now I have these silicone rolling mats, so it makes it really easy. I don't have to add any flour or anything. But you might want to flour it a little bit if it's starting to stick. You don't want it to get too warm because you don't want that butter to start melting. So I took a pie plate and I put my filling in the pie plate. And then I added my crust onto the top of the pie pan. You press the crust down and then you cut off the extra and save the extra because you're going to use it to decorate a little bit. Flute the edge, or you can use a fork to smash it down, and then use the extra to make some little pieces to put on top. The more crust the better for this recipe. The crust is one of the delicious things about it. And then I'm going to use another egg, beat that well, and I'm going to coat a layer of egg, or I'm going to egg wash it and put it in the oven to bake. And there you go, a delicious pot pie. This next recipe is such an easy and great weeknight meal. I just took some small potatoes and I poked holes in them and rubbed them with oil and salt and put them in a pan to bake in the oven for about 45 minutes or so, depending on the size of your potatoes. If you have larger potatoes, it's going to take longer. And while those were cooking, I took some bacon, and one of my favorite ways to make bacon is in the microwave. And what I do is I get one of my silicone dishes, but you could certainly use whatever dish you have, and I just put it in there for 5 to 7 minutes. and then I use a paper towel to get the grease off. Now once that was ready to go, I chopped it up. And then I went back and got my potatoes out of the oven that were done. Monty's always in the kitchen helping, never fails. And the potatoes are ready and nice and tender. Now I had some chicken left over from our chicken Alfredo that my husband made, so I cut that up to throw on the potatoes as well, but you don't have to. And then I took the bacon and I had shredded cheese and those green onions left, or I chopped up a bunch of green onions, and I just loaded my potato with whatever I felt like I wanted on them. So this is very adaptable. You can use whatever toppings you like. You could keep it vegetarian, add some beans or something to get some protein, or some gravy. We really like ranch on our baked potatoes, but we used sour cream this time. And that was it. It was a great weeknight meal. Fried rice is such a great meal to have on a busy weeknight. I just have to think a day ahead of time and make sure that I make some rice so I can stick it in the fridge, because you need cold rice for this recipe. And I'm using my new pot I got, my new cast iron pot. I'm so excited. Got this for my birthday last month, and I am loving it so far. So I fried up my eggs first, and then I sauteed my garlic and carrots and onion, and put a little fresh minced garlic, or fresh minced ginger in there as well. Then I added my cold rice and plenty of oil. I love this toasted sesame seed oil. It gives it really good flavor, but I also put a mild oil, flavored oil in there, and lots of oil to keep it from sticking. Then I added some frozen peas, mixed it well, and then I added my diced ham steak. Now you can use chicken, you could use beef, you can use barbecue pork, whatever you want. Now I added back my egg at this point, and then I used some of those green onions from yesterday's meal and added my soy sauce. You don't want to put too much, but not too little, probably a quarter cup at least. And voila, there it is. This soup is so delicious. Start with a little butter and oil. Then you're going to chop and wash your leeks and add a lot of minced garlic, about 4 cloves, some crushed red pepper flakes, and saute those up pretty good. Now I'm adding 2 sliced potatoes into this as well, and a whole can of tomato paste, because what are you going to do with the rest of it? So you might as well use the whole thing up. You're going to add about 4 cups of chicken stock or vegetable stock. The recipe called for fish stock, but I didn't have it. Then you're going to add your cooking wine with flour and some salt and pepper, and mix that together and let that simmer for about 20 minutes. When it's done simmering, the vegetables are tender, you're going to add your cream, your defrosted shrimp if you're using frozen shrimp, and your crab meat. Now you don't have to use crab in this, but I found it on sale. And then some fresh parsley as well. I added a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of mayo to this, but those are definitely optional. And then I let it simmer for another 10 minutes, and then it was ready to serve. My husband made homemade bread to go with it, and it was so, so good. This is such a treat of a soup. If you liked these recipes and want to see more, please subscribe, and I hope to see you again here next week. Thanks, bye.